Hey, welcome into the Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Mack, and if you are here today checking out this video, you're most likely looking for some trade advice, and you're looking at the master of trades, a guy who prides himself on making the most of every situation every single year. Like they say, you don't win your league at the draft. You have to stay water. You have to stay competitive and hungry. And this is the place to pick up some tips and tricks, some strategies that you can employ to get the right players on your team for weeks 11 through 16. Really, when it matters, that playoff push, getting that championship. That's what we're here to do, prepare you for those weeks. So, with that being said, if you are new to the channel, like many are you're going to be when you stop by here, please consider doing a couple things to help us out. One, that subscribe button. The little red button there that costs nothing to you. It's free. Just go ahead and click it and stay tuned with us throughout the season. We'll help you with your individual trades and so on and so forth. That like button or leaving a comment is another action that you can do. You can also check us out on social media at snap_fantasy. All right, tip number one. Don't be the guy or girl in your league that goes out and fires around a million trade offers. You need to pick the right partner. All right, we all have those annoying people in our league that spam trade, and word goes around fast. At the end of the day, you really don't want to trade with that person. So don't be that person. A volume play and sending out 100 trades hoping that somebody accepts one is not the way to go about setting up a trade. You need to pick the right partner. And what I mean by that is find somebody who need something that you have a lot of. So, for example, if you are a team that drafted running back heavy and you have a lot of running back depth, but maybe you're wide receiver needy, find that team who went the opposite, right? Somebody who is running back needy but has plentiful wide receivers, right? So find that trade partner and make a trade with them. And the second piece is that communication is key. Okay, so I wouldn't, unless you're in a league where you don't know anybody, and that certainly is the case. We join a lot of leagues through Twitter and other social media platforms. If it's a case where you don't know the person, you kind of just have to send the trade offer. But if you play in something like a Yahoo league or even a sleeper league, there's so many personal messaging capabilities within those platforms that reaching out to that person before actually sending them a trade leads to more successful trade completion of trades happening in your leagues. And this is something that I've learned over the years. So if I want to, after I've identified a trade partner, target that person and really get a deal going, I will approach them before I even send a trade offer and say, hey, I notice you might be running back needy. I have a lot of running backs. I'm willing to give one up. In return, I'm looking for a wide receiver. I need help. That's a good way to establish common ground. And you want to position it like you're trying to help them as much as they're helping you, because in the end, people want to feel like they addressed a team need in a trade and they got the best side. In the end, you want to make your team better. You don't want to give up more than you're getting, but in most times you have to satisfy another person's needs in order to get what you want. So it's finding those little nuances of finding the right partner and establishing communication, opening up those lines of communication. That's really, really important in getting a deal done. So I would say for the majority of you who really don't know how to go about getting trades done or establishing that groundwork, those are two really, really useful tips, because we could have all the strategies in the world, but if we don't know how to approach the right person to get the deal done, we're probably not going to get there. All right, here are some strategies that I want to give you guys, and I'll try to give some examples for the best I can. As of right now, we just got off week 2 of the 2020 NFL season. A ton of injuries just happened, so some of these trade strategies that I'm about to go over really, really might affect you guys or resonate with you guys if you're getting us after the week 2 injury fiasco. So the first thing I want to talk about is package trades. So you can go about a package trade one of two ways. You can trade 2 of your players away for a better stud player, or you can trade a stud player away for depth and get 2 other players. An example of this: if you were somebody who just lost Saquon Barkley, week 2, season-ending torn ACL, and you're just like, man, my team is in shambles, you might have to take your number 1 wide receiver in Tyreek Hill or Devontae Adams, or you might have to take Lamar Jackson, the guy you took a shot off in the back of the second or even the beginning of the 3rd round, and you might have to say, I'm going to give you Lamar Jackson for Deshaun Watson and Brandon Cooks. You might have to go and get a guy you can plug in at quarterback or stream the quarterback position and grab another depth piece like a wide receiver to help you out, because Saquon Barkley's not coming back, but you have to go out and now take another valuable asset and turn that into more startable pieces because you need depth. Okay, and if you're not winning on the waiver wire, this is what you will have to resort to doing. On the other way, what you want to do is you want to start targeting players, and if you're a deeper team, who are studs and have already had their bye week. So when it comes to weeks 8, 9, 10, when you're approaching your trade deadline, trying to acquire guys that have already had a week 5, 6, 7, 8 bye, have already got that out of the way for a player who might have a week 12, 13, 14, but 11, 12, 13 week bye, you actually get an extra week out of the player. So I might try to package, a DJ Chark and a Melvin Gordon, and I might try and get myself like a Devontae Adams. I might try to get myself a Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Package those 2 guys together and go get that stud player if you're a deeper team. And in the end, you need the most star power to probably win a championship, get you closer. So package trade, maybe a guy you're not playing that's on your bench and a guy you're flexing to a needy team, and try and get that stud. Buying low and selling high are the 2 biggest things when it comes to trading assets, not only in fantasy football, but in life. When we talk about finance and stocks, we want to, when the market takes a dip, we want to buy more so that when the price goes up, we make more money. And fantasy football is no different. What we need to do is, over the next coming weeks, we might need to look at schedules, players that potentially have bad matchups. And when those guys experience those down weeks, the perception on them is going to go down and owners might panic a little bit. And that's our opportunity as savvy fantasy football players to jump in and grab value on those players. So if we can buy players low after bad weeks, and then when the schedule gets better, they're going to return to fantasy relevance, we can cash in on some value. The opposite way is if we have a player who overperformed and we're not really sure if that value kind of holds true. A guy that I just sold, James Robinson, he was a guy, free agent guy. I picked him up off waivers. He's had 2 back-to-back 100 all-purpose yards and a touchdown score through 2 weeks. I just sold James Robinson for a load in Dynasty, and in redraft formats, that's something that you can do too. So if a guy has a big week, Odell Beckham Jr. might be another one. You get that big boom game and a touchdown or 2, you might want to pivot off Odell Beckham Jr. to someone who is willing to pay the world for a guy with name, value, and talent like Odell Beckham Jr. if you don't believe that performance is going to last the rest of the season, if you can trust him or not. When it comes to buying low and selling high, you also want to look at down the road when you get to your trade deadline, playoff matchups. Okay, so buy low, sell high on guys that potentially have, buy low on a guy who has a poor stretch weeks 8 through 10 and perception might be down on him after a couple bad games, but look to that playoff matchup. Maybe we've got some soft matchups that we can really run the table and put a lot of points up on. And then the last piece is you need to be willing to sell anybody on your roster. This is the biggest flaw with fantasy football players. As soon as we draft those players, we click draft or we win them at auction, we can't let go the fact that we spent first or second round capital. We can't lose sight of the fact that we spent $50 or $60 on a player. We become married to the players and we tend to see the best in them, and you have to maintain the mentality that every single person on your roster is negotiable, is movable, because if you don't, you are giving up huge value. A trade I made last week was Saquon Barkley, okay, after week one. And Saquon Barkley had a terrible week one. I traded away to a loaded team in a keeper league, Saquon Barkley for Cortland Sutton. Yes, he's on season-ending IR. Austin Eckler and Cam Akers. So I picked up 2 running backs for Saquon Barkley, and Saquon Barkley's now out for the remainder of the season. Not many people would be willing to move Christian McCaffrey. Not many people would be willing to move Saquon Barkley, but what you need to do is be willing to let people pay what they think Saquon Barkley's worth. And in this case, it happened to be a huge haul, and even with one of those 3 players down, I'm still doing okay. So be willing to trade Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Travis Kelce, Zeke, CMC. Be willing to trade these guys because you never know what someone's going to pay. And lastly, this isn't up on the screen here, but be active. Don't just draft your team and try to coast your way to a victory. You have to be active. You have to be trying to win waivers, and you have to be trying to make trades, because that in the end is how you win fantasy football championships. So if you want some help, crafting a trade, send us your 2 lineups on Instagram or Twitter at snap_fantasy. You can get me personally at mtout23. The handle's right below me here. Hit me up. I'll help you with your trades. Post it in the comment of this video. I'll give you my feedback any week from now until whenever your trade deadline is. Most are week 10. So if you don't know your trade deadline, make sure you have that date stamped in your calendar. But I really, truly believe that if you adhere to these 5 tips and tricks, they will really, really help you towards a fantasy championship. And that, in the end, is what we are looking to do, my friends. So thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate your eyes and ears. Again, if you're a new-time listener, first time you've got us on YouTube, please go ahead and click that subscribe button, or check us out wherever you get your podcasts by searching the Snap Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Mack, and we'll see you guys in the next one.